of Lane County, Oregon have been providing natural beauty and natural resources for generations of Lane County residents. These forests are home to valuable fish and wildlife, and these resources enrich our way of life. The forests of Lane County brought prosperity early on, but late in the 19th century and early in the 20th century, they brought controversy as well. A company who was granted land in the forest by the federal government for a railroad managed the land so corruptly that President Theodore Roosevelt intervened and returned much of the land to the public, taking that land off the local property tax rolls, but allowing for timber harvesting. For most of the 20th century, revenue from the forest was shared by Lane County and the federal government. In the 1990s, that timber revenue declined rapidly. In 2000, the United States Congress enacted a safety net that helped Lane County and other counties across the nation make up for the loss of timber revenues. The legislation, known as the Secure Rural Schools and Community Self-Determination Act, required skillful legislation navigation and considerable time to get through Congress.
Well, when I first proposed the county school guarantees back in the Clinton era, I proposed to make it permanent. Unfortunately, the Congress at that time, the Republican Congress, and others lobbied against that. They won. They wanted to create a cliff. And counties are now at the edge of that cliff. And this is a cliff under which critical public services cannot survive in many of the counties in Southwest Oregon.
Once passed and signed by President Clinton, legislation allowed counties to continue to provide vital public services to their citizens. It also created Resource Advisory Committees, or RACs. RACs have proven to be phenomenally successful. The RACs bring various academic, industrial, environmental, and governmental interests together to address complex public land issues and reach consensus on how best to manage forests.
Well, the RAC is composed of a variety of people, some elected officials and some private people, and they're all submitting proposals, environmental proposals to the group. Then the group divides into committees and makes recommendations. Then everybody gets back together and the group as a whole makes the decisions about the money. And as usual, there are more proposals and more money being asked for than there is money to go around, so we do the best we can at allocating the money for what we feel are the best purposes. So there's quite a wide range of proposals that we get, all the way from culvert replacement for fish passage to decommissioning roads to other just environmental enhancement projects. No local agency has the money to do this on their own, and that's why the RAC money is so important.
A RAC project that was recently completed was this culvert replacement on South Fork Ferguson Creek. Before the project, there was a 3-foot drop at the culvert's outlet, and the culvert itself was 4 feet wide. Now, the culvert's 14 feet wide and has streambed material throughout its bottom. This is really important to allow cutthroat trout, which weren't able to pass through here before the project, access to spawning gravels upstream. This project would not have been completed were it not for RAC funding, because the BLM doesn't have sufficient resources to replace all of their barrier culverts. If we don't replace most of the barriers like this, we'll see salmon and trout populations decline even more.
In addition to providing for the RACs, the safety net legislation helps keep Lane County's public safety system operating. Without the legislation, that public safety system will be compromised.
I think the perception on the part of many citizens is that the people in government, in Lane County in particular, have been whining about the sky falling for so long that now when public officials talk about this collapse, it's falling on deaf ears. The reality is the system has been collapsing over time, which is why you see in my office, although the population has increased by 20%, we have fewer attorneys than we had back 30 years ago. Our investigative staff is about 20% of what it was 30 years ago. Our detective staffing is about 10% of what it was 30 years ago. The Sheriff's Office has to patrol an area about the size of Connecticut. It's over 4,600 square miles, and that's being done on an average patrol shift by 2 deputies and a patrol sergeant. In contrast, that job was done by as many as 10 or 12 cars 30 years ago. That's just grossly inadequate. It's left us with resourcing that's on a level with 20% or 25% of the norm. And if we don't find a replacement for secure rural schools funding, it's going to continue to get worse, because the fundamentals of the financial structure are based on the old system where timber provided the revenue.
Without the federal timber money, we will not have a functional criminal justice system in this county. It won't happen. You cannot have an operating criminal justice system if you don't have a jail and you don't have jail beds. And we won't have them if we don't have the timber funding. We know that. We've seen the effects of not having a jail. If you're going to have a system, whether that criminal justice system is for punitive measures, rehabilitation measures, reformation measures, to have it operate, you have to have a carrot and a stick. And the carrot encourages the reformation and rehabilitation, but the stick promises consequences for people who are not going to take that rehabilitation seriously. And without that stick, without those jail beds, we can't hope to rehabilitate offenders. We can't hope to break the cycle of violence. We can't hope to protect the public. There's absolutely no way we can have a hope of having a functional criminal justice system without that funding.
The safety net legislation creating the RACs and providing for public safety is without question one of the most successful pieces of legislation ever passed by Congress. But it passed when the nation's budget was experiencing a period of relative health. Times have changed. Budget surpluses have become huge deficits. Lane County's ability to provide vital public services is heavily impacted as Congress continues to reduce the safety net year by year. By 2012, it will be gone. Revenue from timber harvesting won't begin to make up for the loss of the safety net. Lane County continues to work with Oregon's congressional delegation and counties and school districts from across the nation seeking a long-term solution.
And the long-term solution that I envision would be a mix of more active forestry and continued guarantees. We figure we could double the federal timber harvest reliably with very little or no protest, hopefully. And I would say that then the counties would get not only the benefits of the jobs and the tax revenues that flow from the active mills and the mill workers and the communities, but they would then get their statutory share, 75% on O&C lands instead of 50, and 25% on Forest Service lands. And they would not have to choose between base payments and a share of the revenues from the active forest management. And then I would say that we would continue payments. I'd love to do it at the first or second year level, more likely probably the third or fourth year level. But if we have that base thing, and we have those continued guarantees, and we have a new forest policy that can help generate more revenues, and you don't have to choose between the two, I think this could make the county substantially whole. It's not going to be where we were 5 years ago with the guarantees we got in the Clinton years, but it would be a heck of a lot better than what they're facing today, which is falling off a very steep cliff to an unsustainable situation.
With patience and persistence, Lane County continues to work for you to provide vital public services effectively and cost efficiently. Tough times bring out the best in Lane County residents, and together we can preserve our natural beauty, our natural resources, and our way of life.